place right around Thanksgiving. And, so then if you're pushing those back 4 weeks, then again, we're running into the weather issues in December that we could have, here in Missouri. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just saying, oh, yeah, we can just push everything back a month.
Yeah, and if everybody was running the wishbone, then playing December football wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, exactly. But
I'm surprised you even mentioned that. Aren't you a State fan?
Yeah, but
I am as neutral as they come.
So one thing I saw too in the document was about trying to social distance on the bus during travel. So does that mean that teams will take more buses? So that it kind of be one person to every other seat. What kind of expectations do you guys have there?
And that's going to be a difficult one for the schools, especially ones that may have to travel further. An example that comes straight to mind is West Plains, which is a larger school down in south central part of the state, just above the Arkansas line. They're a Class 4, Class 3 school in many sports, but the schools around them that are within an hour traveling distance are Class 1 and Class 2. So especially playoff time, they're having to drive an hour and a half. Rolla would be another example. Most of their conference opponents are in Springfield, an hour and a half away. So, their travel just to play a game is a little bit more difficult than a lone jack going to Adrian or something like that, or even in the metro area when Staley plays Lee Summit West. A lot of people drive themselves. There may not necessarily be a team bus going in that direction, but especially for the schools that do have to travel a lot more, that's going to be a big hurdle that they will have to figure out. Either they may have to limit their team size or take an extra bus to accommodate that.
What you talking about? Teams that got to travel a far distance to play schools their size. I think it sounds like the smaller schools are probably going to have the more easier time getting things in, but there's going to be bigger schools in smaller areas that have to travel. What about forfeit? I mean, have you? I mean, there's another thing. You're going to have forfeits this year. How are you going to handle that?
And it's going to depend on when it is and what the situation is. What we're telling schools, if there is an issue where, say, a team is quarantined and can't play, the whole team is out, then in most of those cases, we will probably consider that a no game and would not be considered a forfeit. However, if there is a team that can compete, but the team that is coming into the area is worried about a hot spot or worried about travel, then there may be a scenario where that would be considered a forfeit. Then one of the questions that we dealt with early on, no matter what happens during the playoffs if a team is now quarantined or comes down with something? Well, in order to keep the progression and the flow going for those playoffs, then at that point it would have to be considered a forfeit. We did see some examples of that in Iowa this summer. They were able to get there. They normally play softball and baseball in the late spring, early summer to begin with. So they actually only delayed their seasons about 2 weeks. But they did have some teams that had to be quarantined and could not participate in the postseason because their quarantine timelines butted up or extended into the playoffs, and they couldn't play those first round games.
Well, the bottom line is there's not going to be very much normal to 2021 school year.
Yeah, it's all going to kind of
be. That's very true.
That's all going to be kind of uncharted territory. When it comes to games,
Are we having coaches and refs both wear masks during games, or is that a requirement? If it's in there, I might have missed it. So would you be able to clarify that for us?
That is part of the guidance document that we're strongly recommending that any personnel that is not involved in the activity be in a mask. That could be an umpire in the base paths. That could be a side judge for soccer running up and down the sidelines. Any bench personnel, teammates that are on the bench and not in the game or in the action. Now, for soccer example, the middle official is running up and down. And, I think on average they run about 5 miles a game.
Yeah.
In those situations, they wouldn't be in a mask. Same with the actual players that are on the field during the action. But the subs and the people on the bench area would be in a mask.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
The governor of Kansas, Laura Kelly, is talking about possibly taking us back down to phase 2 next Monday. What does phase 2 and phase 3 look like?
Well, that was one thing that we wanted to kind of keep to a minimum of the phase thing, because it's going to change based on locale. And so, if you're able to have this, then you can do this. So we tried to limit the phraseology terminology as much as possible and make it more to, if your local health officials allow for this, then you can allow for this.
So with kind of the mask thing, just to clarify, so I mean, football I think is kind of the hardest one to social distance with, just because we do have a box area where some teams have over 100 players. Other teams obviously they might have 15 or 20 players, so that'll be easier. Or is there going to be any extension to that box area to help with the social distancing, or is it just every kid on the sideline that's not in the game is going to be wearing a mask, so then they have to take that off under their helmet or whatever before they go in? Or, I mean, kind of what does that look like in your mind?
There have been actually some rules modifications that have come from the NFHS to many of the fall sports. Masks would be one of them. One of the things that would be allowed is if a team has the some people call them gator masks, or the gaither that you wear around your neck and you can pull up. Mm-hmm. We've had a number of schools asking about that. Can we get these that have a logo on them or in our school colors, and would they be within the uniform rules? Things like that. So, that's a possibility for teams to have to cover the face mask or the face covering rules. One of the modifications for football, like I said earlier, was maybe extending timeouts or quarter breaks to 2 minutes to allow for that, the team to come over. And, since everybody is also going to hopefully have their own water bottle, that's going to take them more time to get things like that. But one in particular in football, like you said, the team box area currently measures from the 25-yard line to the 25-yard line. One of the modifications is extending that to the 10 and 10 to allow for those teams to spread out.
I'm sure there are going to be some officials that aren't going to like those coaches coming all the way down to the 10, though.
There's some officials that don't like them getting past the 45s. So.
No.
Sounds like you're dealing with Jim McMahon rules from the 1980 Bears with all this. This is allowed, that's allowed stuff. Hopefully, we don't get to that point on a regular basis.
We're trying to minimize this is allowed and that's not allowed, but we can't help ourselves.
Kind of one thing too is I saw you tiered the personnel. Kind of tier 1 is your participants and the coaches or sponsors and, officials, security personnel, basically your people that have to be there to run an event. And then, tier 2 is any media that may be covering the event. And then tier 3 would be fans. And if I was reading it correctly, you're kind of leaving that up to the local schools to decide if they're going to, just allow in tier 1 or tier 1 and 2 or allow all 3, right?
That is correct. And what that was for is if a school is in an area that does have limitations on the number of people that can be at a mass gathering. Say they're in a phase that only allows 50 people for a mass gathering. They're going to have to decide what 50 people come in. And say it's a volleyball match and, you have 15 players on each team. There's 30, you have 2 officials. Then you also have a clock operator and a scoreboard operator, a scorebook person. So you have your game ops people that have to be there as well. That's going to cut into those 50 people that can be there to begin with. And so that's just to give the schools some guidance of considering this is what you need to have. Do most schools have 25 media members covering their contests? No, they don't. And we understand that. There may be 1 or 2 there. For some sports, some radio stations cover softball, they cover volleyball, they cover football. Most of the time it's going to be with the football where you're going to have radio stations covering the event. But also with these new restrictions, you may have people there that are being able to provide a live stream of the contest to provide that service for people that can't be there. So that's going to eat into your 50 people as well. So that's what the tiers are there for, just to give the schools a starting point of, okay, who do we have to have here? And, when do we start allowing for fans and things like that?
And I know, UClick TV has done a great job, over the last few years of covering these events and being able to live stream these events. So if there are any school personnel out there that are looking at this and saying, well, we don't feel it's safe to have masked fans, but we want to offer a streaming service, you can get in touch with Jim Bly, and that's just Jim Bly at uclicktv.com. And
we do all sports, Gary.
Yeah, all sports. I know you've done soccer and football and baseball, basketball, softball, everything.
Jason, we're going to do that golf tournament someday soon. We are. We're going to do it. I want to do a cross country and a golf. I think those would be 2 of the most challenging but interesting sports to cover. I've watched the relays in Lawrence, Kansas. I can't remember what they call it, but that is phenomenal, the coverage they give that.
Oh yeah, that's and actually at the new course we use for the cross country championships in Columbia, it was designed for Mizzou to be able to host SEC championships, NCAA championships, and as well as broadcasting those events, and that's something we're looking forward to hopefully being able to implement at our championships as well. Because, like you said, that's one of the ones that we really haven't been able to expand our coverage to, just because of different layouts and things like that. But this new course we're using was one of the specific design elements, was to be able to easily accommodate that.
Yeah, I think with the way the internet and the live streaming works, if obviously everybody wants to play in front of fans, it makes it a little more fun. But, with the live streaming options out there, UClick TV, like I said, they do a great job covering all sports. And, if you're not in the Kansas City area, I'm sure if there is an option for that, Misha, you guys will work with those organizations to help get these schools some coverage during that time.
Yeah, that's actually one of the discussions we're having. As you know, we partnered with Blue Frame Technology last year, and they were able to help us producing a lot of our championship content and hosting that on MSHSAA.tv. And that's one of the programs we're going to be